he told his father to leave. Not tomorrow, not next week. That night, as the old man stood there, holding a small suitcase and the same coat he'd worn for 10 winters, the son said 5 words that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Don't ever come back. He thought he was choosing peace. He didn't know he was choosing regret. Part 1. The breaking point. Ethan was 32 when he threw his father out. He had just been promoted at work. A new house, a new curtain, a new fiancé. His life was finally on track. But his father, Robert, didn't fit into that picture. Robert was old school. Quiet. Rough around the edges. A retired mechanic with grease permanently embedded into his hands. He had raised Ethan alone after Ethan's mother died when he was 8. Robert never went to university, never wore a suit, never understood Ethan's corporate world. But he understood sacrifice. He worked double shifts, skipped meals, wore the same boots for years so Ethan could have new school shoes. He sold his late wife's jewelry to pay for Ethan's college tuition, and he never told him. Not once. But as Ethan climbed higher in life, he became ashamed of the man who built the ladder. It started small. Dad, don't wear that when my colleagues visit. Dad, you don't have to talk about the old days. Dad, just stay upstairs tonight. The house that once felt like home slowly became divided by silence. Then one evening, everything exploded. Part 2. The argument. Ethan had invited his boss and a few coworkers over for dinner. It was important. Robert, forgetting the plan, walked into the dining room in his worn sweater, smiling proudly. Ethan, I fixed that loose cabinet door you mentioned. The room went quiet. Later that night, after the guests left, Ethan lost control. You embarrassed me, shouted. I was just trying to help, Robert replied softly. I don't need your help anymore. I'm not that poor kid from the garage. Robert stood still. Not angry. Not defensive. Just heartbroken. You think I wanted you to stay that kid? Robert asked quietly. But Ethan was too angry to listen. If you can't respect my life, you can't stay here. Robert looked at his son for a long moment. Not angry, not bitter, just quietly hurt. And no de donce, and began packing. Part 3. The night, everything changed. There was no dramatic goodbye. No shouting, no tears. Just the sound of a zipper closing on an old suitcase. At the door, Robert paused. You won't always understand the weight of sacrifice when you're standing on top of it, he sighed gently. Ethan didn't respond. The door closed, and 5 years passed. Part 4. The climb. Ethan's life seemed perfect. He got the promotion, married his fiancée, bought a bigger house. But success has a strange way of amplifying silence. The house was bigger, but colder. His marriage began to crack under pressure. Long work hours, ego clashes, emotional distance. 2 years later, she left, half of everything gone. Then came the recession. The company downsized, and Ethan, once the golden employee, was replaced. Within months the car was gone. The big house sold. The friends. Now distant, and in the quiet of his small apartment, Ethan heard something he hadn't heard in years. His father's voice. Not physically, but in memory. You won't always understand the weight of sacrifice when you're standing on top of it. For the first time, Ethan did. Part 5. The realization. He started thinking about things he had never questioned before. The long nights his father came home exhausted. The way Robert never bought himself anything new. The way he always said, I'm fine, even when he wasn't. Ethan opened an old storage box one evening. Inside were childhood drawings, school awards, faded photos of him sitting on his father's shoulders, and an envelope. It was addressed to a bank. Inside was a letter confirming Robert had taken out a second mortgage years ago for Ethan's university tuition. Ethan sat on the floor and cried harder than he had in years. He had called his father an embarrassment, but Robert had risked everything for him, and he had never asked for recognition. Part 6. The search. Ethan didn't know where his father had gone. He started with old friends, old neighbors, churches, mechanics, shops. Weeks passed. Nothing. Then one afternoon, an elderly mechanic recognized Robert's photo. "Yeah," the man said. "He worked here for a while. Quiet guy. Good with engines. Didn't talk much about family. Do you know where he is now?" The mechanic hesitated. "He got sick last year." Ethan's heart dropped. "Where is he?" Part 7. The hospital room. The hospital room was small. Too small. Machines beeped softly. Robert looked thinner. Smaller. But his eyes, those same steady eyes, still there. When he saw Ethan standing at the door, he didn't look angry. He looked surprised. "Ethan." Ethan walked in slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was ashamed of the wrong things. I thought success meant leaving you behind. I didn't see what you gave up for me." Robert smiled faintly. "You were supposed to fly," he sighed weakly. "That was the point." Ethan fell to his knees beside the bed. "I don't care about flying anymore. I care about you. Please. Forgive me." There was a long silence. Then Robert reached out his frail hand and placed it over Ethan's. "I forgave you the night I left," he said, and Ethan broke. Part 8. The weight of forgiveness. Ethan visited every day after that. Erit, Toim, brought him homemade soup. Talked not about business or money, but about memories, about fishing trips, about old cars, about the garage. For the first time in years, they laughed. But time doesn't always wait for reconciliation. One quiet morning, Robert didn't wake up, and Ethan sat beside his father's bed, holding the same hand that once held his when he was a child. Only now he understood. Sacrifice isn't loud. It doesn't demand applause. It builds quietly, and it leaves silently. Closing message. 5 years earlier, Ethan kicked his father out because he thought success meant image. 5 years later, he begged for forgiveness because he learned success means gratitude. If you still have your father, call him. If you're angry, forgive. If you're proud, swallow it, because regret weighs more than pride ever will. And sometimes, the people we push away are the ones who carried us the farthest.